So there's going to be a dog and a 13-year-old and probably other kids in this podcast with us. Just
And there should be. There should be. Hello, everyone. I'm Molly Wood.
and I'm Kai Rizdal with children and dog in tow. It is the Tuesday edition of Make Me Smart. It's our deep dive episode. One big, long topic with an expert to tell us exactly what's going on out there. Always, of course, followed by your comments and then the Make Me Smart question. Today, here's what we're going to do. We are all thinking in some way, shape, or form, and some states and cities are actually doing in some way, shape, or form, this whole getting back to work thing. So what is that going to look like? When you go back to the office, whatever that office happens to be, what might you expect? And we're going to talk about that for a little while.
Mm-hmm. What we're really going to talk about is that you can expect them to be watching you. I
just blew
well, listen,
out my nose
we
right there.
know.
That was great.
They'll be looking. No, there's a whole bunch of new tech that is being marketed toward workplaces right now, because one of the primary differences between a place like America and a place like Singapore, where there's a lot of trust in government and the ability for government to say, hey, everybody, download this app. We don't have that so much. But companies in many ways are going to be in charge of putting in place the kind of surveillance that they hope will keep workplaces safe, keep employees comfortable about the idea of coming to work. And so there's a whole bunch of companies saying, great, we would love to sell you remote temperature monitoring cameras, contact tracing apps. PwC actually released a product that includes some contact tracing and employee wellness stuff. And so we thought this might be a good time to have a conversation about this surveillance and what kinds of privacy issues may occur.
Good. And my guess is they will be big privacy issues that may occur. Chris Calabrese is on the line. He's the Vice President for Policy at the Center for Democracy and Technology. Chris, thanks for coming on the pod.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. So look, just like laundry list for me, as we go back into the office that first day, what things should most of us be prepared to be encountering?
Well, I mean, I think the thing about every American workplace is it's different. So no one will probably encounter all of these things, but there's a lot of technologies that are floating around. One most obvious one is a way to take your temperature. So some kind of fever monitoring. Another is a thermal camera that purports to take your temperature, but does a bad job. And we could talk about why that's the case. Health quizzes. Why, did you have symptoms? Where have you been? Contact tracing. So, who are you in proximity to? And lots of sensors, Bluetooth or RFID, which is the technology that's used to take tolls to kind of see who's close to each other, who's too close to each other. And then lots of back-end databases to track this stuff, lots of information about you, information about your health, artificial intelligence to be used to decide how many people is too many people on a floor. And then, of course, layered on top of all of the existing surveillance that many American workers face all the time, like, having their movements tracked all the time if they're a UPS worker. So we're going to have a lot of different things, and we'll probably see a whole menu from different employers.
Do you think will this end up primarily being the job of employers, though, to put these kinds of tech solutions, for lack of a better word, into place for either liability reasons or just actual risk mitigation?
That's a really good question. I mean, it shouldn't be, obviously. And, and we can talk a little bit about contact tracing, because one of the interesting decisions that Google and Apple have made as part of their building the back end of some of these contact tracing apps is they've very purposefully wanted to work through government. So if you're an employer and you go to Google and Apple right now, they won't let you use their back end services that integrate iPhones and Android phones to do a contact tracing app. Google and Apple only want to do that through public health authorities. So I think it's going to be a mix, but certainly you're going to see a lot of employers, both for their own liability, but also because they know that employees are worried about these things, trying a lot of different things, many of which are totally untested and likely to not work.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, Chris, if so you mentioned the whole, companies are doing it to protect themselves, but also because they know employees need that comfort level thing. But companies seem to have all the choice here, right? I mean, companies are going to institute these policies, and workers are like, have choice, have no choice? They don't, right? If you want to go to work here, you got to deal with these measures, yes?
Yeah, yes. I mean, unfortunately, employees have relatively few choices. I mean, there are some rules. If you're taking health-related information like temperature, that can be saved, but it's got to be saved separately from your employee file. And there are some states, Texas, Virginia, Minnesota, where there's some rules about tracking people's location and movements. And some of those rules may apply to some of these technologies, but by and large, there's relatively few laws. There's certainly no federal law. But there is also a little bit of a balance. I don't want to overstate it because there are state constitutions that sometimes apply. And there's just also if you push this too far, you will see state lawmakers respond and say, this is crazy. People's privacy is at risk. And for example, in 29 states and the District of Columbia bar employers from monitoring and taking action against people based on what they do outside of the workplace. So when you see employers overstepping, you do see, state governments sometimes take a role in trying to regulate that.
Is there an opportunity now? I know we're not great at this, but is there an opportunity now for some states to get ahead of what is likely to occur? Because, look, the gold rush is on now for these products and what may end up being a lot of very invasive, like you said, health theater.
Yes. And that's a great term for it. And part of that makes it hard to know quite what we're going to see, right? So I would call this just the way we saw after 9/11, security theater, where it was sort of measures passed to make people feel better rather than really improve security. There's a real danger we're going to see sort of public health theater. It's like, well, this will make you feel better. And so I think we'll certainly could see states pushing back on stuff that's proven not to work. Like, for example, even a thermal imaging camera company will tell you, or at least one that I found said, please do not use this for COVID-19 diagnosis. All we can really do is tell you whether someone is a little warmer than average. That's not a COVID-19 diagnosis. So if you see employers start to roll out these technologies that don't work, I think you are likely to see a backlash. When it comes to measures that may actually mitigate the virus, then it's less clear. If they do have a public health benefit, I think it's going to be a little more difficult to figure out how to regulate them properly.
One thing, of course, Chris, for bigger companies to be able to do this kind of thing, because it requires some kind of investment on their part. Another thing entirely for smaller businesses and startups, right? Well,
yeah. You're going to see smaller businesses and startups look for sort of off-the-shelf solutions, right? And a lot of that stuff, I suspect, is either going to be sort of cheap things that are aimed at making people feel better but don't do a whole lot of good, like the thermal cameras. Or you could see employers trying to just figure out ways to work with their employees. Like a technology I think we'll see a lot is things like health quizzes, right? Where you're trying to talk to your employees, get a sense, and help them get a sense about how they may have contracted an illness or things that they may want to think about. And then that'll be used as sort of part of an assessment. And that's where I think things get tricky, right? If that assessment seems fair and reasonable, employees are going to want to go along. They want their health protected. If it seems invasive, if it seems like something that in fact is just being used as an excuse to sort of ding their performance in some way, that's when I think you're going to see some tension between employees and employers.
How much of this is companies feeling like, some of it is the opportunity to sell products, but how much of it is companies in some ways feeling like, well, listen, we have to fill a gap here, right? We don't have robust testing, tracing, and isolation in this country. And so companies are like, if we want to get back to work, we have to do something.
Yes, I think that's part of it. There's also sort of a broader phenomenon here that we see across public policy when it comes to technology. And that's policymakers, employers tend to look at technology as sort of like magic fairy dust. They think they can kind of sprinkle it on any problem and use it to make it better. It's cheaper, it's easier, right? And so you'll see a little bit of that here. We'll just throw some technology at it. And I think the reality is that we don't have a lot of proven technological innovations, and the ones that we do have are in very early stages. Contact tracing and exposure notification, which is to say, using your cell phone to know when you're in proximity to somebody else. And so if you do contact the disease down the line, you may be able to notify that person that that they may have been exposed, there's some promise there, but there's also a lot of kinks to work out. So I think we're really at that stage with a lot of these technologies. And so the reality is that it's probably not going to be a technology solution to a lot of these problems. It's going to be old-fashioned testing and contact tracing. But obviously employers don't want to hear that. Governments don't want to hear that because those are expensive solutions and difficult solutions. They'd rather just kind of deploy a technology and be done.
Right. And fundamentally, to quote all kinds of people about this, we got to figure out what the virus is doing, and then we can figure out the rest of it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So long term, then, what's your concern level about privacy and, as Molly said, the gold rush that really companies are going to be really hard pressed to avoid partaking in?
It's very high. The reality is the long-term trends are really all towards more surveillance. And not all data collection is bad, but we are surrounded by data collection technologies right now. Your smartphone is the most obvious example. It's tracking your location and who you talk to. But, we're recording this over a Zoom as lots of people are working remotely. Now suddenly we've got videos of our workplace performance being recorded, and all of our IM chats with our coworkers are being recorded. We just have a long-term trend towards easier surveillance, easier data storage. And when those things happen, of course, employers are going to jump on it the same way governments do. Tough to know exactly what it's going to look like, but I think that we're going to see some of these technologies catch on and they're going to become norms in the marketplace.
So, okay, I feel like, should we remind people of the level of surveillance? Just take this moment of the level of surveillance that is already happening in the workplace. Like Kai's reaction to the IM thing seems valuable to note. Like the workplace is already a place where people are surveilled way more than they may even realize, right? That's what sort of enables this framework for them to just like turn on more.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's the truth. We're looking at a lot of surveillance by a lot of different entities right now. Your cell phone is a portable tracking device. So I think until we figure out the rules around broad surveillance, we're going to have a lot more surveillance technologies being deployed.
Yeah.
Chris Calabrese is Vice President for Policy at the Center for Democracy and Technology. Chris, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
All right. Don't you feel great now?
Yeah, I do. Sorry, I have to go scrub my entire Slack history. Sorry.
You should definitely do that. Yeah, for sure. We did some research. So we actually interviewed PwC about the product that they're rolling out and did some research in advance. For those who are wondering, it's legal. Yeah. Like, yes, companies can do this. And for the most part, barring those kinds of worker protections, existing protections that Chris talked about, workers aren't going to have a lot of choices. And they're certainly not going to have choices if the economy is really bad, the recession's really deep, and there aren't other jobs to go to. So although I know we are not great at planning, maybe we could just plan for this like a little bit.
So the question really is, how are all y'all feeling about this, right? What are you thinking about being watched more closely as you go back to work, right? Tell us what it's like if you are being watched, if you're already back at work someplace, and tell us what you're worried about. Make me smart at marketplace.org. Email, voice memo, we'll take everything, and we'll also be right back.
Make Me Smart is supported by Notion. When your work is scattered across tools and tabs, your brain feels scattered too. It's time to simplify with Notion. Notion is the all-in-one tool for taking notes, managing projects, sharing docs, and collaborating with your team seamlessly. It's quick to set up and fun to use. Notion makes it easy to work on your own or with your teammates in real time or around the clock, no matter where you are. Keep information centralized, find documents fast, and stay on the same page with Notion. For 10% off a team plan, head to notion.com/makemesmart. That's notion.com/makemesmart.
All right, we're back. We got news that Molly and I are thinking about, and we're going to share it with you right now. Molly, what do you got?
So much news. So much
I know, right?
news.
There was so much.
You probably saw me like flip back and forth. Maybe you didn't, but anybody who was in the doc saw me put in like 4 different things and then take them out and then put in some more things and then change my mind. And so I decided to go actually with a story that is related to this, which is that for years now, as we know, the federal government has been in a back and forth with Apple about encryption. Speaking of surveillance. And specifically the Trump administration and Attorney General William Barr is very anti-encryption and has really been pushing Apple to basically create, some sort of little loophole, a little backdoor into encryption so they can get information. So the most recent battle over this was between the FBI and Apple related to the Pensacola shooting, which was at a naval air station. And so the FBI has announced today that, quote, no thanks to Apple, it was able to unlock the 2 iPhones that belonged to the Pensacola shooter and find out important information like a connection to Al Qaeda and so on and so forth, which has caused Apple to once again respond and say, great work, FBI. We knew you could do it. I'm paraphrasing heavily here.
Yeah.
We knew you could do it. We worked with you around the clock to try to, help you in any way that we could that would not involve creating a backdoor that would not only leave consumer iPhones open to anyone, but that would also potentially create security loopholes for the federal government and anybody else who uses these technologies. And so it's this really interesting thing where they did this big dramatic reveal and it was like, no thanks to Apple. And it was like, yeah, exactly.
Yep.
You don't need to break encryption to do your job. You just have to work harder.
Right.
It was very, Yep.
I think it's fascinating.
It is fascinating and it's not going anywhere. And to be clear, I think this is going to continue. I think this encryption conversation is going to continue, but this is sort of like one example of this tension where it seems to make perfect sense that, law enforcement should be able to have like a master key into every phone, but it doesn't. It doesn't. Because one master, if it belongs to the government, it belongs to everyone.
Exactly. And I go back to that thing that you and I talked about when we talked about repeatedly for the past 3 whatever it is years, the slippery slope of letting these companies decide what speech ought to be on their platforms, right? It is a slippery slope. Once you start thinking about in a very specific case, surrendering encryption, but not really thinking about what that actually means,
Absolutely. And so it to me, it just feels completely of a piece with this conversation too, which is like, there's the thing that you could do that seems easy and obvious. Just spy on every employee, just put a backdoor in all the encryption. Just like, yes, law enforcement would be easy if they had access into everything that we do, think, and say. Right. That's true, but that's also not the job. It's not supposed to be easy.
Yeah.
Yep. That's my surveillance add-on for today.
Fascinating piece. So I went somewhere else, and it's to the theme that I have brought up a couple of times on this podcast, which is that there are going to be companies and stores and shops that we all know and love that are not going to be here when this pandemic is over. And it turns out, as of today, Pier 1 Imports is going to be one of them. The company filed for bankruptcy protection a number of months ago and said today it is selling everything off. It's going to close it down, not coming back. Can't do it.
Oh, really?
Yep. Yeah. The coronavirus environment has made it the challenging retail environment, the chief financial officer said, has been significantly compounded by the profound impact of COVID-19, hindering our ability to secure a buyer and requiring us to wind down. Look, there are companies that will not be here, and Pier 1 Imports, which is not a small company, is one of them. And it is a signpost, if you will, of a looming change in this specific example, the retail landscape. I mean, it's really funny. Our dishes, the dishes we use every day, they're from Pier 1, for whatever that's worth.
Totally.
Yeah.
I have a question, and I'm not trying to be one of those people who's like, were there underlying conditions? But were there underlying conditions for Pier 1? Because like with Neiman Marcus and J. Crew, it's like you had a bunch of debt because of acquisition.
Right.
Do we know if that's the case with Pier 1?
So look, Pier 1 had
curious.
gotten whacked beforehand, right? It filed for bankruptcy in February. It was going to close half of its locations anyway. I mean, this was a condition that was it was an underlying condition, as you said, exacerbated by the coronavirus. But it's entirely possible that had this coronavirus not happened, it would have been able to restructure, right, which is one provision of the bankruptcy law, instead of liquidating, which is a different provision. And it's telling,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Huh. Oh, poor Pier 1. They also say that when they're able to reopen stores, they're going to liquidate all of their stuff. And let me tell you, I will road trip to that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. For sure. Because we need a replacement for all those dishes that we've broken over the years. I'm just saying.
Exactly. There is going to be two things before we move on. One, we're actually going to talk about retail next Tuesday.
Oh, we are?
With
Yeah.
Mariel
Good for
Segura.
you.
Yeah.
for you, yeah.
And I know, right? Jody reminded me in the Slack. Good job.
okay.
Good job, senior editor.
I'm like,
and then I keep this to a relative minimum, but I just wanted to say happy birthday to Claire. Your cousin-in-law, Jay Green, who I used to work with, told me that it's today. Apparently she's like a big fan. And
Well, there you go.
it's her actual birthday. And that like almost never happens. It's usually like, it's your birthday month or whatever. But since Claire and I share a birthday month, and today's her actual day.
Birthday month.
Happy
I don't
birthday.
subscribe to I get the whole month part of being a birthday as an adult. But anyway, whatever.
I mean,
That's fine.
due to it actually being March 75th and not May, I kind
Well,
of
that's
almost
true. That's fair.
forgot that it was my birthday month. So
fair.
I'm just going to have to start now and go through the end of it,
Fair enough.
which
Fair
is
enough.
something. All right. Shall we do the mailbag?
We shall.
Open it up.
Hi, Kai and Molly.
This is Brent in Detroit.
This is Rebecca from Baltimore.
It was great to hear comments on my question about GDPR.
I wanted to put in my vote.
I want to discuss a slightly different but maybe related thing.
We're going to discuss all the things here in the mailbag. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the thing we talked about last week, modern monetary theory with Stephanie Kelton. She is one of the gurus, if you will, of modern monetary theory, one of the proponents. And she gave us a crash, let's call it a crash course, right? It was a 15-minute interview on this huge monetary theory.
Yeah.
Anyway, got lots of comments on it, including this one from Pete Salas, who says, here's what he says. I really enjoyed listening to Dr. Stephanie Kelton talk about MMT, but she didn't address the practical dangers of making the money supply and therefore inflation a political decision instead of a technical one. Everything works fine in theory when you assume people will act rationally. But we've already seen what happens when we put short-term, long-term trade-offs in the hands of politicians. Open parentheses, editorial comment here. Oh, yes, we have. Close parentheses. They will gradually accept higher levels of inflation to benefit from increased government spending, just like they accepted higher budget deficits for the same goal. He goes on, this doesn't even account for what could happen when people start doubting official government inflation figures, start questioning the distribution of increased government spending, or if the dollar loses its position as the world's reserve currency. So look, Pete's not wrong, right? I mean, one of the things that has to happen for this theory to work, actually, is that politicians need to get themselves out of the economy, which is a flip way of saying, look, there are really serious challenges if this becomes real. That's
Right.
just true.
Yeah,
Totally
I think that's actually a really good point. It's not, as with most things, the flaw is not in the theory. It's in the humans.
Dear Brutus. Yes, for sure.
Fair point. Yes.
See what I did there?
We also asked you to tell us, I'm picking up what you're laying down.
All right. Okay.
We also asked you to tell us about it was just a little too on the nose with respect to the fall of the Roman Empire and the whatnot. So I'm just cruising on.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway,
I've been
we
bad,
also asked
yeah.
you to tell us about what it's like in your state, if indeed things are opening back up, and more importantly, if you're going back to work. We got a voice memo from Amber Bradshaw in Dallas, Texas, and here is her perspective.
Hi, Make Me Smart team. My name is Amber, and I have been back at work at my very large furniture retailer outside of Dallas, Texas for just over a week now. It has been a really strange and surreal experience. I'm actually very proud of what my company's doing and providing for staff to keep us safe. They've done all of the acrylic barriers, and they've provided staff with face masks, washable ones and disposable ones. But staff aren't wearing them unless it's required, and it's only required when we're customer facing. So that's on the sales floor during opening hours. In the back of the house, they're not required, and they're not required before we open. And customers, it's about 50-50. Customers will come in with their entire families without face masks on and touch everything they can. And I'm concerned about a resurgence of this virus.
Yeah, me too, Amber. Me too.
Yeah,
Me
no
too. I'm
kidding.
concerned anyway, even without all of that stuff you described in that voice memo. Because holy cow,
Yeah. We really, yep.
I don't understand.
I mean, there are
not
so
wearing
many
masks.
ways. I don't either. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think it's just gonna take time. Sort of like lots of things that were mandated. Like cigarettes are
seatbelts.
bad for you, but it took a lot of social pressure to get people to stop smoking, and I think masks are probably on that trajectory where at some point it'll just be like shame for the people who aren't. But it's gonna take a long time.
Yeah, no, true.
And it's a shame that it has to come that way. Yep.
Totally. All right. This is a comment on a comment. We had Sharon Zimmerman on. We read her email about deferred treatment for people with chronic health conditions in this, coronavirus economy. We got an email from Matt Marshall. He's a family physician in Atlanta, Georgia. Here's what he says. Trust me, this may not be getting media attention, but it is front and center in almost every discussion about the medical world opening. That said, one of the biggest issues in this decision is the nasty fact that we start shedding the coronavirus in high amounts up to 12 hours before we even feel sick. This means that both healthcare providers and patients could be infecting each other without meaning to. And in your listener's case, with periodontal disease, her periodontist and technicians live in people's mouths where risk of infection is highest. Please keep in mind that many in the medical community are high-risk individuals themselves, so they need to consider their health, the health of their medical staff and families when choosing to see patients. We want to see our patients. We worry about our patients. But Zoom has been helpful, and thank God this pandemic didn't roll through in 2000, which is a really good point, right? Yeah. Before any of this telemedicine stuff happened. But yeah, look, I medical workers have been heroes and are heroes, but they have, real concerns themselves, and I get that.
Yeah. No, it is brutal. Thank you, by the way. Thank you. I love, I am never not amazed at the depth and breadth of the audience on this show, and how when we need to know something, there is an actual expert in our audience who can tell us. Yes. Right. This is exactly what is happening and what we're feeling. Because it's a huge deal. And there's been stories about, on Marketplace, how do you get people back into clinics, but also know when it's wise for them to stay out. It is all part of our long bear hunt that we're on here. We will end as always with the Make Me Smart question. What is something I thought I knew, but I was wrong about? And here is Rebecca Davenport.
Hi, Kai and Molly. This is Rebecca from Salt Lake City, Utah. Something that I thought I knew but was later wrong about is actually going to be tweaked, if that's okay, to something that I've forgotten about but have definitely been reminded of. And that's our capacity as people, as a community, as a nation, to recognize when something is serious, we all have to get together and we have to plug in, try to tune out all the crap that's out there and help each other out. I know for myself, I do tend to work well under pressure, but this has definitely helped me remember what I'm capable of as an individual. There are so many silver linings that will come out of this. The economy is my biggest worry, but we'll get through this because we have to. What's the alternative? Thanks so much for everything that you do. Keep it up. Put a smile on your face. Yes, this is dire, but as long as we're able to move forward and find a way to greater health and greater stability, we'll do this.
I love that.
Yeah, I'll sign on to that.
Yep, I love that. There was a lady who tweeted us actually and said, okay, great. We get it. This sucks. Let's start talking about solutions. And I was like, I love that lady. She's my people.
Yeah.
Because yes,
good stuff.
There is a tomorrow. Let's figure out what it's going to look like.
Okay, ready? Here we go. Tomorrow on this program, it's What Do You Want to Know Wednesday. So that's it for the show today, the Tuesday Deep Dive. Sign up for the Marketplace Make Me Smart newsletter at marketplace.org/newsletters. All kinds of good stuff in there, of course. Comes to your inbox crack of dawn Friday morning, like super early. Middle of the night, I think, is when it drops, but for whatever that's worth. Yeah.
You're already up. Look at this man. What a consummate professional. Tomorrow. Unbelievable. World class. Make Me Smart. No, wait, switch. Your turn.
My turn. Make Me Smart is produced and directed by Sam Anderson. Our digital producer is Tony Wagner. Our senior producer is Jody Becker. Thanks to our video producer, Ben Heathcote, our video intern, Ethan Parrots, and writer-producer, Erica Phillips.
Today's program was engineered by Drew Jostad, I hope. Our theme music was composed by Ben Tolliday and Daniel Ramirez. I can't see him. The executive director of On Demand is Satara Nieves, the senior vice president and general manager of our operation, who I think has been brilliantly modeling work-family balance in her Zoom meetings.
Oh, my goodness.
Deborah Clark.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me, like, how do you handle, I think internally for like a survey we're doing, I work from, how do you handle when your kids and dogs are in the Zoom? And I'm like, as honestly as possible. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Were we talking about things that our teenagers are doing that they've never done before?
Yes.
Because mine are cooking, which is bizarre to me in every way.
What?
But, yeah, I know,
How
right?
have you accomplished this?
I can take absolutely no credit. They just collectively decided that one person's going to plan and the other two are going to be the sous chefs. And hey, last couple of Thursdays, we've had very nice meals. It's shocking to me too. I don't know. Maybe it's illness related.